Have you studied English? Maybe you've studied English for a long time. Maybe you've studied English in high school and in college. Have you taken cursinhos, or maybe you've even had a private English teacher or done conversation classes. Even so, do you just lack confidence to really speak in English? Maybe you don't feel comfortable speaking with a native speaker like me. Maybe when it comes time, when an opportunity comes up for you to go to a meeting or a conference or to talk with a business contact, you just don't feel like you're prepared. Maybe you don't feel like you have enough vocabulary, or you're just not prepared to use your English in this way, to go to the next level, to have a high level of confidence when you're speaking in English. Sadly, I think this is so common in Brazil. And don't worry, there's a way to find confidence. There's a way to improve your confidence when you're speaking in English. And it's my great pleasure to share with you 7 tips today to increase your ability to speak in English confidently. If you don't know me yet, it's nice to talk with you. Hi, I'm Maureen Turnbull-Arbelo, and I'm the founder of Prepare Integrative Language Coaching. I inspire people to cross the boundaries of language and culture confidently. And that's why I'm here to talk with you today, to share 7 tips to speak more confidently in English. The first tip is to have a clear goal. I talk about this a lot, but having a clear goal is so important because what we focus on expands. So English is enormous. I'm originally from Colorado, so I have a particular accent. I also know particular words. So I don't know all English, nor can I understand every English speaker, or depending on the area, I don't even know those words. In other words, it's a very frustrating goal. That's not good for your confidence if you focus on learning all English. No, create a clear goal where you want to go with your English. You can start small and then expand, but focus on exactly what kind of English you need, exactly where you want to go. And that comes to tip number 2, which is to create your own little world in English. Your own little world is just that. You don't have to understand every single accent, every single area. You by no means need to know all the vocabulary. You focus on what's important to you in your area. For example, let's say you need to make a pitch at a business fair, and it's a business fair in film. Well, then that's what you need to focus on. You can create your own dictionary and start building up your vocabulary, your confidence, and your competence in those specific words, that specific vocabulary, that specific jargon, the specific names and pronunciation of those words in your area. That will make it much easier for you to focus. You'll be able to know that you've achieved a high level. You'll feel much more confident, much more competent, and you already know a lot about your area. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to get to that level. If you're trying to study everything and trying to learn food when you need to focus on film, it's going to be very difficult. So focus on what you need to focus on. And that way you'll feel much more confident when it comes time to have a conversation. Number 3 is that you need to create a daily study habit. It's so important for us to create daily habits. And I also talk about this a lot because it is so important. I'll tell you that this has made a difference in my life and in the lives of so many people. For example, I've told you that I enjoy to do yoga. I enjoy doing yoga. And for years, my teacher would say that we needed to find 10 minutes a day to meditate. And that if we couldn't find 10 minutes in our lives to focus on that, we needed to look at what we were doing with our time. Even so, I'll tell you that it was hard for me to find 10 minutes in my day. It seems crazy. How could I not take 10 minutes out of my day? But it was very hard for me to create a habit. But I chose a particular time every day to focus. And for years now, it's exactly what I do every single night. Now, I feel strange if I don't meditate for 10 minutes every single night. It's become such a habit that my son has a special word for it. He calls it green apple. So if I ever don't say it's time for green apple, he reminds me. It's a habit for me and a habit for him, which means it's something that I do and I don't have to think about it. And that's what will make a big difference in your confidence in English. If it's something you do all the time without having to think about it, it just becomes who you are. That is number 3. And number 4 is to maximize your time. Like I said, 10 minutes is crucial. If you can do 10 minutes every single day, you're creating a bunch of momentum and you're creating the neural pathways and you're creating the connections in your mind to make English something that you speak naturally. You don't have to think about speaking. You just do it. That is only possible by practicing. So it's so important that you have that daily habit and you also maximize your time. I know you don't have a lot of time, so you can do other things to increase the input you have in English. What that means is that whenever you have a chance, just flip your TV to English. Turn on the radio in English. Just try to have as much input as possible. And that is number 5. To create some kind of immersion. To immerse yourself as much as possible. Like I said, you need to maximize your time. So to do everything you possibly can, to do everything you are doing anyway in English, and to immerse yourself. So for example, little by little, try to change things into English. Change your phone into English, your email, maybe your Waze, maybe your Netflix, maybe your computer, maybe your navigation. Try to switch little things into English. And what's going to happen is that when you're typing an email, when you're doing all of your everyday activities, you're getting English input. Now, immersion is one of the best ways to learn a new language. But just because you live in another country doesn't mean that you're naturally gonna learn that language. Maybe you know people who have lived here in Brazil, for example, for years and still don't really speak Portuguese. So it's so important that you have that constant contact, as much input as possible in the language, but also that you speak. Number 6 is to talk. To talk as much as possible in English. Now, if you don't feel confident speaking in English, try speaking more. This might seem difficult, but that's why a lot of people who are living in other countries don't need to speak the language. So they speak their native language and they don't feel comfortable speaking that other language. And maybe that's you in English. So the best way to feel comfortable, one of the best ways, I'm giving you lots of tips, but a great way to improve your confidence and the way you feel comfortable in English is to speak as much as possible. So what that means is you do not have to have a person to talk to. You don't have to have a friend or a teacher to speak English with. Start with the mirror. Start speaking to yourself in the shower. A plant, a dog, a cat, maybe a baby. They're all great listeners, and they won't talk back, and they sure won't laugh or critique your English. So start like that. I challenge you to every day say a little something in English. And again, you'll find that the more you speak, the easier it becomes. We are like a car or any other machine, right? We get rusty, right? But we gotta put some oil on our gears. That oil is repetition, practice, and constant talking. For example, the way we start talking and not getting stuck is to talk and talk and talk and talk. And that was number 6. And number 7 is that when we're talking, we're proud of the way that we're talking. This is a hard one and so important. All of these tips are so important, but maybe this one is one of the most important. One of the ways to feel more confident in your English is to accept your accent and to accept the fact that you're not a native English speaker. I'm a native English speaker, but I'm not a native speaker of Portuguese or of Spanish or of Sanskrit or the other languages that I'm going to learn in the future. For a long time, I was really frustrated and I got actually mad when people noticed my accent because I thought that my Portuguese or my Spanish wasn't good enough if people could tell that I wasn't a native speaker. When I actually changed that mindset, when I actually decided that I didn't have to sound native to speak well, that wasn't my goal. I'm not Brazilian and I never will be. So that's not really my goal. My goal is to speak clearly, to express myself in Portuguese and Spanish and the other languages that I speak. My goal is not to be Brazilian. And actually, my accent is who I am. The fact that I do have an accent makes me much more interesting. If I was a native, if I spoke like everyone else, I would be like everyone else. So if you try to speak like everyone else, you'll be like everyone else. No, speak like you. Value your accent. Be proud of your accent. Be proud of where you're from and the different perspective that you bring to the conversation. That is going to make you feel so much more confident when you're speaking in English. So speak. Of course, we're getting better and better every day and making fewer and fewer mistakes. But don't criticize yourself for making mistakes or for having an accent because that's who you are. And that will make you feel more confident about the way you speak. I hope that these tips helped you, and I would love to hear how you've implemented these in your life. Also, if there are any other things you do to feel more confident when you're speaking in English. It's a great pleasure to talk with you today, as always, and hope you have a wonderful day, and can't wait to talk with you next week. Much light, much love. Ciao, ciao.